Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for CBM Calling. This is our fourth broadcast, I think, today. And joining Terry and myself today, we have Elie Haddad, who is our MENA team leader. I think we use that abbreviation quite a lot, and probably people are like, I don't want to seem stupid and ask what MENA stands for. So I'm just going to say Middle East and North Africa, for those of us who didn't know that beforehand. And we're really happy to have you with us today, Elie.
Thank you.
And welcome, Elie. It's good that you can join us. We are mindful of two things before we begin this. The first is that you live in a country where power outages happen frequently. And if you disappear, it's not because you're upset with Jennifer and me. Secondly, as we just chatted with you, we know you have a little bit of a cough, and we are not going to judge you because you have a cough. We know that it's just a cold and it is not COVID-19. If most of the people that are watching this are anything like me, Elie, living in isolation is a totally new and bizarre experience. But for you and me, this time of hardship is probably beckons to things that you experienced in your past, having lived through a childhood during the Civil War and then lived through the war in 2006. So I am so grateful because I think you can share some meaningful insights with us. First of all, how are you and Mireille doing presently? Can you describe what your life has been like for the last 7 to 10 days?
Yeah, thank you, Jen and Terry. Mireille and I have been at home for at least a week. We've been working from home. We're in a state of self-isolation, so we only go out to the grocery store and that's it. It's interesting what's happening in Lebanon. We've been in a crisis mode since October of last year. With the uprising, we've had this political crisis and then huge economic crisis, and now we have the corona crisis. So the bad news is it's like crisis upon crisis. The good news is we were already in crisis management mode. So for us as a family, as a seminary, as a ministry, and also in Lebanon, it's interesting, we have a lot of mismanagement and corruption in our government, but yet we were the first country to close down schools and shut down the airport. So they have been taking measures early on. So fortunately, this will probably work in our favor.
Elie, I was wondering, yesterday was Mother's Day in Lebanon, is that right? Just wondering what that was like. It would have been very strange, I guess, with everyone in lockdown and what that's like. And I know for probably a lot of Lebanese families, your elderly parents actually live with you. And so I'm just wondering what that might have been like for you.
Yeah, in Lebanon, Mother's Day is the first day of spring. So it was this past weekend. It was very different. There were no flower shops open. So the only gifts that we could get to our mothers were masks and gloves and sanitizers. Many people wished their mother well over the phone. Many of them drove by and they just honked and said something from the car and then kept going. It was very different this year.
I'm wondering also if you've heard, I'm sure you have been in touch with just our other staff there in Lebanon as well, with the Boutresses and Joe Breedy and Philip Levy as well, who is on a long-term sent trip.
They're all doing well. They're all busy in ministry. The Boutresses are very active. Imad is going to be one of the first professors to be teaching an online course after our residential students have gone home. And he's very close to the students. So those who are stuck at the ABTS, he's helping them a lot. So Almas also tutors an online course. Joe, he's very involved with refugee ministries. So he's still very active in that. We have a community center. So people are not coming to the community center anymore, but there's a lot of distribution that's happening. So Joe and the team are going out and visiting refugee families and giving them food vouchers and hygiene material and stuff like that. Philippa, she's with us for a year, and her main task was to teach English to our students. Now we don't have class instruction, so Philippa is helping us move that English instruction to an online platform. And she's used to working from home. So this is for her normal. Yeah, so everyone is active.
That's good
And
to hear.
Mireille is developing Bible study material for Heart for Lebanon, and she does that very well from home as well.
Excellent. Elie, I want to take you back to your childhood, growing up in Beirut. It was a long time ago. I know you're a very old person. Go back to your childhood and what it was like during the war when you were living in isolation. And there were times of total lockdown, shutdown. How do you compare this experience presently with what you knew as a child?
Yeah, this crisis takes us back in time, a long time. My generation of Lebanese, we grew up during the Civil War. So we learned not to take things for granted. Sometimes we couldn't get out of our home for a long time. Sometimes there wouldn't be electricity for a long time. There wouldn't be water for a long time. There wouldn't be supplies. And we knew how to manage that. But the difference is when we're all hiding at home, we're hiding with neighbors, we're hiding with family, we're hiding with friends. This time it's a bit different. Now friends are a threat. And we are a threat to our friends. So this is a different level of isolation. Add to that, there was always the feeling that the war can end anytime. There can be ceasefire and then life is back to normal. Or we can run away, get in a boat or an airplane, and we go somewhere else where it's safe. Now this is a global crisis. There's nowhere safe. There's nowhere to run. So it has a different feel to it.
Yeah. It must indeed, yeah.
I was wondering about the students at Arab Baptist Theological Seminary, ABTS. Just wondering how they're doing. I know most of them probably went home to their home countries, but we heard in particular there were some students from Sudan who got stranded and are staying there. I'm just wondering if you can just update us how everyone is doing.
So we took action pretty quickly, and we decided that we have the online platform ready for us to finish the year with online instruction rather than in class. So we worked very quickly on sending our residential students back home to their countries. We managed to do that with a few countries. We have a large contingent from Sudan. Just 10 minutes before they headed to the airport, we got a note from Khartoum that the airport was closed. And then 2 days later, the airport in Lebanon was closed. So we still have a number of students in our campus, in our dorms building. So we're working a lot with them to keep them safe and distributing them over different rooms. And so we will continue instruction online. They will not be in class. And at the first opportunity, we will send them back home for safety.
And probably most people don't know that you have a tech background yourself. So you're actually one of the most technologically savvy people we have working at CBM. But that's been very helpful, I think, probably as you've helped ABTS to move to being able to have online platforms. We were emailing, Elie and I were emailing earlier this week, and I said, you guys were already set up ahead of time, whereas a lot of schools in Canada, that hasn't been the case. And they're still trying to figure out what that's going to look like to do everything online. But you guys were well positioned to do that already because so much of your education was already distance. Yeah, so that's been very beneficial.
So we are fortunate that we were part of a large collaborative program of developing online materials. So we launched our online classes a few years ago, and we have many graduates out of that program. So we have online the equivalence of 1 year residential. And we've been working on upgrading that to second and third year as well, starting next year. So now with the switch from in-class to online, that will help us accelerate this process of going with a full bachelor degree online. You know, in our region, accessibility is a major issue. So this way, our equipping training will be accessible to way more people. In addition to that, you know, our big consultation that we do every third week of June. Well, this coming June, we have a very exciting topic that we wanted to deal with, gospel and public life. and that deals with issues like Corona just as well. So there's a lot of excitement about the topic, but now it's impossible to bring 200 people to ABTS for that experience. So now we're reconceptualizing that consultation, and we're breaking it down to several webinars that we're going to do online, probably one half a day type of thing every month, maybe starting April on May, and focus on one topic and try to invite voices from all over the world to join us in that conversation. So that's another level of trying to build on a technological infrastructure to do ministry in the 21st century post-corona.
That actually sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Right, Terry? Yeah.
I was going to say that in times like this, I don't think we could ever be more the church than the opportunities that the world is giving us right now. Mm-hmm. We're learning what it means to be the church without showing up in a building, without like this. We are absolutely salt and light in the world right now, and this is going to present a phenomenal opportunity for the church to establish and regain a credibility as a public witness right now. So I love the theme that you've chosen. Yeah.
And you know, Terry, we've been in this crisis since October. So even the church has been in crisis management mode, and the pulpits have been addressing all sorts of topics. And our faculty, just this past week, one of our faculty members wrote an article about missiology of social distancing. And who would have thought of this a few months ago? So it's interesting to see how thinking is developing and how God is shaping us and shaping the church in the middle of this mess.
Amazing. You know, I have one last question if we still have time, Jen. And that is, I think within the humanitarian sector, Elie, a lot of us are really concerned about what's happening with refugees and internally displaced people globally, and the incredible risk that poses, where they, if the coronavirus reaches into these camps at the same rates that we're experiencing in many countries, they do not have the means of social distancing. They do not have the access to public health care. They don't even have the money if they needed to buy medicine. And I know that Mehat and the LSESD, our partners in Lebanon, are doing an amazing job. Can you give us a little bit of an update about what's happening?
Yeah, it's very scary, Terry, if something should happen in refugee communities. And no one really knows if something started to happen, if there is any kind of infection and not being tested. I was chatting this afternoon with Lucas, the director of Mirath, and it's not only the refugee communities at risk. We have so many communities in Lebanon that are at risk. You know, Lebanon is oversaturated with population, especially since the influx of the Syrian refugees. So we have so many communities that people cannot escape one another. There's nowhere to isolate. And there isn't that level of awareness. So in Lebanon, they've declared the state of, they call it general mobilization. So it's one step before state of emergency. And they're calling for self-curfew type of thing. So many communities are complying, but many communities are not as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of threat. What Mirath is doing is they've stopped schooling and bringing people together, but still through their ministries with local churches, they're still visiting the refugees, they're still distributing vouchers, hygiene kits, raising awareness, informational material, all of these things. But this is a drop in the bucket. So our ministries, they serve around 20,000 refugees out of more than 1 million. So you can imagine the need and the risk that we have to live through.
Thanks, Elie.
Well, we know that a lot of people are praying, Elie, for you and for everyone, our partners and everyone that's working in your region of the world. I'm just wondering, is there anything specific that you want people to be praying about?
Yeah, I think pray for us as we are praying for our partners. usually we're used to being in crisis and the world is praying for us. Now we're contacting our partners and we're praying for them as well, because this is a global crisis. So prayer for finding the right mix between protection and caring for others, between staying safe and staying active in ministry and doing the role of the church, no matter how costly that role is. Praying for wisdom to navigate this new season. Even in terms of funding for ABTS, things are going to be different for years to come. So we have to adjust to new realities and we have to navigate a different season. So a prayer for wisdom in that, and to be able to experience God in fresh new ways in the middle of this.
Yeah, good prayers, I think, for all of us. I think we're CBM also would be in a similar boat, and we'll unpack what that means for everyone, I think, in the weeks and months to come. But it's definitely a new reality. I think we probably have to end things here, Terry. It's been good, and it's always good to see and catch up with our field staff, and to see your face and to see that you're well. So thank you, Elie, for joining us today. And we want to thank everyone who's been taking time to join us for these broadcasts. We know that everyone's probably inundated with lots of options right now as to things they can be watching, but we're grateful whenever people take the time out to see what's happening around the world. And we're just reminded that the world hasn't stopped, that there's still lots of ministry going on everywhere in all the places that we work, and all our partners are still actively trying to be the church where they are. And so thank you for your prayers and for your continued support. So tune in again tomorrow at 2:30, and we have some exciting things coming up. So at the end of the week on Friday, Terry, you and I are supposed to be answering questions that people have posted on Facebook. I know this could be scary. So if you haven't done so and you have questions, please post them. And on Friday, we are apparently going to be answering your questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Elie, as well, for being with us. We're so grateful.